thing. When Darrin Pfeiffer joined the Salads, that was such a crazy gift for me, because
Hmm.
there's another guy that has that same drive that I had. And we started doing it together. And he's,
I have a surprise for you. I don't know
oh,
if
you
you're
do?
ready for this. So I reached out to a few people
Okay.
to hear their thoughts on Mr. Chuck Dailey. So
Uh-oh.
I have a comment for you from Mr. Darrin Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So when I asked him, I said, "What is it that you love about Chuck Dailey as a musician and as a person?" He says, "You know what? Chuck is genuine. What you see is what you get. His heart is made of gold. He's an incredible musician. He's a fun hang, and he's just a solid human. I'm happy to call him a friend." So that's Darrin Pfeiffer, who was a member of Goldfinger, Sum
Oh, that's
41,
so
and
kind
played with
and
you
so
in the
tame.
Salads.
I thought he was going to say something offensive in there, or
Well, I did
talk
have
about
to
how
censor. I
good
did
I
have
look
to
with my
censor a
pants off
little
or
bit
something, right?
because,
Yeah.
yeah, you know him. I had to censor slightly, but
Oh
I
yeah,
got
the
the
drums
gist of
have
what he was
stopped
saying.
on stage while I've been playing with him, and been playing forward through this like heavy tune, and like, where are the drums? And I'll turn around and he's got his pants off and he's making love to my bass cabinet because he's so happy with the bass tone. So yeah, that's a very nice, conservative, professional compliment. So thank you.
I PG-13'd. I made that the Dawson Creek of comments so that
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
gets it.
The Dawson Creek. The Salads had a lot of songs on Dawson's Creek.
That man, Dawson's Creek was where it was at when I was growing up. So
Yeah, cool.
that's too funny. Now I have another person. Speaking of the Salads,
Uh-huh.
I reached out to someone, and this is a funny mutual friend here. So when I was 18, I went to OEArt
Okay.
in London, Ontario for audio engineering. And
Amazing.
one of the
Great
guest
school.
speakers was Dan Brodbeck,
Oh yeah, Dan.
who
Well, Dan is
produced
one of
and
those guys that I gave myself a week to call, where I was so impressed by him and so blown away at what he could do with the Gandharvas and so many other bands. He had at the time a band, Bomb 32, who became a band called Headstrong, got signed to RCA. And we were playing with them all the time with the Salads. They're sort of a rap rock heavy band, really good band. RCA was doing their demos with Brodbeck, and eventually Clive Davis just said, "This is so good. Just do
wow,
the
Clive
record with
Davis.
Brodbeck, right? Just do the record with Dan." And when we got the Headstrong record, it was like, this is unbelievably amazing. Because we knew the band, we knew what they already sounded like. They were good, but Dan brought them like through the roof. And so my thought was, I'm going to call this Dan guy and ask him if he'll work with us, right? If he can do that with that band, I wonder what he can do with us, right?
And he did multiple albums or all of them. He was a
he's
big part
done
of the Salads, was
he's
he?
been on a piece of every single one of them. So even our record Music Every Day, even Dave and I recorded all of that ourselves. It was just the two of us. But we sent it. Well, actually, we had Siegfried Meyer, who taught at OEArt, recorded the drums on that record. Yeah. He recorded the drums on that record, and edited the drums. Dave and I did all the guitars and vocals at home, but then we sent it to Brodbeck to mix. So we paid him to mix that album. We were attempting to mix it on our own, but we realized that Dan is a member of the Salads. And if Dan isn't part of the record, it doesn't sound like the Salads anymore. So.
Well, I have a nice comment. I didn't have to PG-13 this at all. So Dan
brilliant.
says, Chuck is first and foremost a great person. I don't care how talented someone is if they're not a nice person. So I'd rather be around great people. Chuck is a great person. Oh, and he's a great musician. His love of music is what makes him a great musician. It's always great fun working with those guys because we all just love making music, which shows on all those records, I think. So that's from Dan.
Yeah, Dan has this working with Neil was really amazing, actually, over the pandemic. Neil from 3 Days Grace, him and I were very in tune and heard a lot of the same things. Neil has a real way to use space in music. He knows when to be quiet. He understands the silence in music and how powerful that is. And I think when you hear any 3 Days Grace, there's so many quiet stops. But Brodbeck and I connected in a way that I found really remarkable. I used to get up in the morning really early. So we would live in London at, they were called the executive suites in London. We would
Sounds
rent this.
fancy.
It was not executive and it was not fancy, but it was affordable. And we could all stay in the room because it was like an apartment basically. But I would, it was in beautiful East London as well, which is a horrible part of town. But I would wake up, crack it on, and get to the studio. I'd ride my bike or walk over or whatever, and get in there just so that I could work with Dan alone, because I knew the rest of the guys weren't going to be there for a couple hours, and I wanted the opportunity to get things out of my head onto the record without anybody critiquing it. Right, like I wanted to just get it out of my head and onto the record, and if I can get there, and it's just Dan. What I learned about Dan was we heard the same thing. So I knew that when I did that, I could go, Dan, I've got this idea for this part of the song. And he would say, what do you mean, this idea? Are you going to sing this? And he would sing it at me and I go, that's exactly. And then I want to do this with it. And he goes, I know you do. Right. Like, and so we just had this, we were
Get out of my
this,
head.
Yeah, we were hearing the same things, which was pretty awesome to me. And then he also had the ability, my favorite thing I ever did is on our Big Picture record. It's a song called Thick and Thin. It's at the last, like into the very last chorus of the song. I think we're coming out of a bridge. But there was a thing, I can't remember where it was on a record, but to me, it sounds like someone's taken a lasso and thrown it over the song, pulled it tight and yanked it back at you. I'd see everything really visually music. And I tried to explain this thing to Dan. I want it to sound like it's going away and then coming back in a wave, go and almost sound like it's in reverse and then explode into the chorus. And he did it exactly right. It's this like layered harmony thing that drops down and then whips back, and it has that lasso effect. So I don't know.
He had to work the panning knob something fierce to
it's
make
neat.
it happen.
There's like reverse piano in there. He did all these layers of stuff, but it was exactly bang on. So yeah, I adore Dan, and his ears are out of control. Because like that Gandharva's record that he did, I think he did it when he was a teenager, right? So it's like one of these people that are just genetically prone to being able to hear things that way. Like I don't really get it.
Some people just develop their talents early. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the talent that Dan does not have is growing facial hair. Like you've got a gorgeous beard, Joel, and Dan, no matter how hard he pushes, nothing comes out.
I also remember when he came in. So back when I was about 18, when he came in, he actually said his age at that time, and he was way older than he looked. Like I think he had started
he's forever young.
Yeah. So I think the no beard actually helps him with how young he looks, and he was like in really good shape, and yeah, he had he had something going on.
He's super handsome too, right? Like him and Gavin Rosdale. But it's yeah, he still looks great. I think he just turned 54. I think it was his birthday last week, and I think he turned 54. I might be mistaken. I know he's in his 50s, but yeah, he looks like he's still 30 years old. Yeah.
He got those good genes, or he's got the fountain of youth that he's not sharing with anyone else except Gavin Rosdale. Yeah.
It's rock and roll. I don't know.
Forever young, really, I guess, rock and roll, right?
It does something. It really does. You know, my older brother is and his wife does the Ironman marathons and does very, very well, and he climbs mountains and rides his bike to work, even though he's a partner in a law firm. He just takes his bike everywhere. But he always swears that the only fountain of youth that we have is physical health, right? Is like staying healthy, exercising, and eating well, right? Where I'm like, no, man, rock and roll. Like
we need scientific proof. We need testing for rock and roll.
Look at Dan Brodbeck. Look at Gavin Rosdale.
We need to stick some needles into Dan Brodbeck.
I'm still doing pretty good. But it's like I just find that the majority of my friends that stick with it have this real youthful, playful nature to them where they never ever stopped being children. They still continue to see the importance of playing. That the best part of being alive is playing. I taught guitar for over 20 years, and I never once told the kid to practice. I'd always tell them to go home and play, right? And that's that's key, and I think that's one of the tricks to staying young is just holding on to that, never letting it go, right? Like, it's my opinion anyway.
I've heard that most people know in their heart of hearts why they're on this planet, what they're here to do by the time they're like 17. And the thing is, most people don't follow that because it's usually something creative where, society says that's not something an adult's going to do. And so I think you're onto something that if you can cultivate that childlike wonder and what is it you loved as a kid? I love to play music. I love to play video games. And then there are people that do music and make money, and there are people that do video games that make money now.
Well, yeah, when you're a kid, you use your imagination and you play. Like, all you do is play and use your imagination. So keep it up, right? So many people get that pushed away, or they feel they get shamed. They get it shamed out of them. Grow up. It's like, no, like